You've been watching a live press briefing of the IMF taking place in Washington, D.C. for the launch of the October 2024 World Economic Outlook. Chief Economist and Director of the Research Department, Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas, addressed the media where he said the outlook for global growth has improved but still faces medium-term challenges. Well, Arise Business Correspondent Rotus Oddiri joins us live from Washington, D.C. with in-depth analysis on the IMF's latest press briefing and the key takeaways from the October 2024 World Economic Outlook. Good to have you on Newsday, Rotus.
It is good to be on Newsday. Good afternoon. Yes. Time difference.
Good afternoon
to the
Rotus.
crew.
So what are your takeaways from today's press briefing?
How can I put this simply? You fell ill, you're recovering, but there's still mosquitoes outside. And there's some people who are poking holes in the mosquito nets to let them in. So you could fall back ill again. Since the COVID pandemic, there's been a difference in recovery for advanced economies that have financial buffers. And to drill down a little further, a financial buffer is basically the difference between a wealthy person and a poor person. When there are price shocks, wealthy people are able to withstand them because they've built a buffer of money. If this camera is an illness, or a price shock rather, and the space between me and the camera is bundles of money, and I wish I had those bundles of money, that is my buffer that is able to withstand that shock. Poorer people or poorer countries don't have that buffer. So developed economies at the beginning, when Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas, the chief economist from France for the IMF, was saying that, inflation has fallen. It was 9% in late 2022. It's now about 3%. As a Nigerian, I'm like, what is he talking about? If you're a Nigerian with inflation at 32%, or you're from Turkey with inflation at 49%, or you're from Argentina with inflation at 200 something, you're asking, what is he talking about? He's talking about wealthier economies, developed economies with buffers. For emerging markets, the Nigerias of the world, the Iraqs, the Irans, the Venezuelas, it's a different story because we all have unique stories. Nigeria, for example, the double reform of liberalizing the exchange rates, removing fuel subsidies, those types of things are price shocks that have increased inflation. So it just shows that it's a unique story for different parts of the regions.
You know, the chief economist also mentioned the fact that nations, countries should prepare for more shocks. And you'd wonder where Nigeria sits, in that scheme of things. Can you talk to us about the inflation and diversions? We know that inflation dropped in the month of August and then it rose again in the month of September. Where do you see Nigeria in the scheme of things?
So in order for you to be able to be prepared for a shock, you have to build a shield to withstand that shock. And at the end of the day, this comes down to money. Because the folks who are most impacted by the inflation you just talked about are the people at the lowest rung of the income ladder. So now, as a country, as a nation that wants to protect those people, you need to be able to have enough of a fiscal buffer to be able to give money to them. So welfare payments. We had the Dr. Christian Ebeke on the Global Business Report about a month or two ago. He's the IMF representative for Nigeria. And he kept, in fact, we had him twice in a row, and on both times, he kept emphasizing the need for Nigeria to be able to dish out money to people at the end of the income rung to be able to withstand these shocks. But where do you get the money from? We've talked about raising taxes on wealthy people. Being able to, in fact, the front cover of front page of today's Nigeria's newspaper of record, Nigeria is looking at ramping up oil production by 1 million barrels over the next 12 months. That's a buffer, that's income, because they want to sell more oil. But how do you get there when you got oil theft and other things? So it's all about money.
Well, Rotus, before we let you go, what else can we expect, from the rest of today?
There's a lot going on today. The Gulf nations are going to be discussing sovereign wealth funds and how to use that money. So again, we're talking about money now, to diversify away from oil. So Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. That's one conversation. The CBN governor here, that's a Nigeria CBN governor, Olayemi Cardoso, has a press briefing, I think, at 6 p.m. I think it's invitation only. Finance Minister Wale Edun is part of a G24 press conference along with the Finance Minister for Argentina and the Philippines. And then there's also something called the Analytics Corner from the IMF, where they'll be discussing renewable energy for sub-Saharan nations. So it's a packed day.
Oh, well,
Sub-Saharan African nations.
Thank you very much, Rotus Oddiri, a RISE business correspondent. Thank you for...